There's kind of these break points, and there's this thing in the industry about the ones and threes. Maybe you've heard of this, but it's like every 1 and 3 is a major break point where you really have to reinvent yourself. So going from 100,000 to 300,000 to $1 million to 3 million, 10 million, 30 million, 30 million, 100 million, 100 to 300. I mean, there's massive. It's not just incremental. We grew our revenue. From $1 million to 3 million, you had to become a different company to get to 3 million. You have a new rite of passage each time you level up. You talked about you having to become a different leader. What are you doing to prepare? And I believe that none of us are the leader today that our teams are going to need for where we're going to be tomorrow if we're growing and we're healthy.
Right.
So what are you doing to get ready?
Well, I mentioned earlier, I'm surrounding myself with people that have been there, done that. Other CEOs, people that are managing way bigger companies. It's wild when you go tour a company. I just toured a facility a couple months ago. This guy's got 10,000 employees. Like, my problems, I asked him, I'm like, how many, because we've dealt with lawsuits, all that, where we've kind of got a target on our back. In the end, mining's just kind of a little bit of a target space anyway. This guy's got anywhere from 10 to 20 active lawsuits at any given time. My problems are nothing. So getting real context into what the next level looks like, that's a few levels up. But surrounding myself with people that have been to the next level, right? Putting people on the team that have been there. We just brought 2 guys over onto our team that came from a multi-billion-dollar company. We were lucky to snag them. We're getting ready to snag one more. So really doing some of that. But interpersonal work, man, I've never been more dedicated to personally getting better, even away from the business, spiritually, mentally. I need to be like, somebody uses the term business athlete. I've never been a business athlete. I've been a guy just trying to get a company off the ground. To get to a $250 million CEO position, I got to be a business athlete. Mentally tough, physically tough, emotionally tough. I'm not there yet. There's books you can read. There's leadership things you can attend. There's people you can surround yourself with. I'm trying to do it all. Sometimes maybe it's a little bit too much, but yeah,
No, I think it's just staying plugged in. Because if you get to a point where, like, success can breed apathy, which can breed letting your foot off the gas a little bit, and then it's a slippery slope, and all of a sudden you've lost the thing you created. And so I think there's really an art to staying hungry even when you're not hungry. You're trying to get ahead of, hey, I'm not here. And it goes back to that purpose. When you have a strong sense of purpose, and it's not just about financial success, you go, okay, I'm getting ready for something that's about this purpose manifesting. And it's not just, well, I can hit cruise because everything's nice and, smooth now.
I'm more worried, honestly, at this stage about the company outrunning my abilities or the company outrunning me and me not keeping up the pace as the leader. I'm more worried about that than the company going the other way, going out of business. I think it happens to so many, especially small companies, to where the company grows just enough to where the guy can't manage it, or he can't be an effective leader. He can't pour into his people. So that's what's on my radar.
I think you have what it takes. I would just encourage you. I think it's great that you brought in leaders from billion-dollar companies who have had that experience. You need that. And at Ramsey, we had a season where it was a bunch of us just scrappy cowboys just making it happen. We had no idea what we're doing, but we had passion, baby. And so somehow it was working. And then we realized we're getting big enough. We need to hire some smart people that can help us organize things and our clunky databases and all that kind of stuff from a software and IT standpoint, from the sophistication in our marketing. And we quickly realized that when we got a few of these geniuses on board, really smart people, what we didn't get with them was that scrappy, humble beginnings culture that we had. And we didn't even realize that it was being threatened. Not that they were threatening it. They just didn't have that. And so as leaders who now had power and influence in the organization, we quickly went, oh, whoa. We've got to dunk you into our culture. We've got to decorporate your system a little bit.
That's probably not an easy task.
Our soul, but not losing the talent and the skill that they have.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of your job going forward, is making sure that, yes, you're recruiting studs who have seen a lot bigger things than what your company has seen, so that you bring that season and that experience in. but then you're infusing them with let me tell you the stories of how we got this thing started, and that scrappiness doesn't get lost because you get too sophisticated.
Oh, I'm going to leave here and text about 20 people on our team, tell them they have to listen to that part right there, because it's so spot on with where we're at. I mean, and it's a fear that I've kind of always had, right? Do you get too big? How do these big companies get so fat, right? And then you start walking down the path and you look back in the mirror like, yeah, actually we're putting on a few pounds. We're getting a little fatter. You roll out we're working on an ERP and all these things that you do as you get bigger. It's a really good challenge because I can see how folks lose their way and what got them, where they are. I was walking through the lobby and I saw the what is it, a Volkswagen or something sticking out of the wall with the trunk open?
Oh, it's the old Mark 7. That was the car that Dave originally sold the books out of the trunk of that car.
Super cool. I took a picture of it.
And we built this building, and he found that car, not the actual car, but the same model, cut it in half, and opened it up in our cafe, and we've got books that we sell out of the back of that car.
But it's a great illustration.
It's a callback to the story of the Genesis.
Yeah, I mean, because I can remember we started the company. I was borrowing some space from my dad in his big warehouse, little bitty corner office. Then we went into a basement office of, Gant's dad's place. And then we got our own new office. Now we've got a second office. And I can just see, while we were at the stage where you guys were, where, you need to bring in a ton of legit smart people, we can't forget how the heck we got to where we are. And there have been times, especially through COVID, you talk about the 1s and 3s. That was our third year of business last year with COVID. There have been times where we've been so eager to make that big jump to the next level that we've kind of a little bit forgotten, how did we get here?
Yeah.
I'm guilty of that.
Well, it's telling the story, and then it's also, Dave has modeled this really well, but he just keeps pushing and he keeps playing offense. And you get to a certain level of success where you're tempted to start playing defense. And smart people are good at mitigating risk. And we needed to get a little bit less reckless.
Mm-hmm.
We needed to grow up a little bit.
Yep.
And so we wanted them here. I'm not trying to bag on these people, but what they needed to hear was, we're going to keep taking risks. We're going to keep playing offense, because there was a time we had nothing to lose. And you know what? We're going to act like we still don't.
Yeah.
We're not going to start protecting this empire and hoarding our money and taking all the risk out of the equation, because when you start playing safe, that's the day that you're dead. Because your competitors start to creep in and they go, hey, we got nothing to lose.
Oh, I know.
So we'll say yes to that crazy idea that you guys should have, and then all of a sudden you're out of business.
There's a term that's used around the office called, and you said it earlier, cowboying. People around the office call me the cowboy, because early on, I would quote projects, and these are multi-million-dollar contracts, and it would be scratches on an envelope math. Right. I just yesterday, one of our main guys was out and I needed labor rates for a project in California. And they were like, well, you're going to have to wait. And I said, no, don't worry about it. I'm going to cowboy it. I'll write some rates down and send them to the estimating team, because I know what I'm close enough. Right. I'll add a little fluff to it. And everyone just kind of looked around and said the cowboy, because it's so true. But I've also seen us get to a place where we have made mistakes due to my cowboying. $1 million mistakes, several of them, real $1 million stories that now people are a little bit gun shy and they say, no, we've got a process for that. And I have seen that also come at a detriment. We have lost projects by 5% that we should have won, that we'd have made great money on, because some of the rules we had put in place to safeguard some of the creativity that we used to have. And I think there's definitely a happy spot. We're working down to the happy spot, but
there is a sweet spot. And I think it's a constant tension. It's the place that I feel like Dave and our senior leaders like myself, who are kind of old guard, have had to work really hard, and it's just a constant thing of embracing process to increase efficiency and minimize risk, and to have some standard procedures that the team knows, if this, then that. There's some benefit in that. But anytime you introduce process, you decrease the speed of decision making. And when you decrease that speed, your response time to the customer goes down. Mm-hmm. And when response time goes down, they're more likely to shop you somewhere else, and you don't get the job, and then revenue goes down. And so there's also a risk in decreasing risk. You got risk on both sides of that. And I think the tension we hold as leaders is pushing hard on the team that's all about process to see that we still got to move. And so let's do process, but let's do it with aggression and passion. And then dialing back the Cowboys a little bit to say, hey, let's not be reckless to the point that we kill ourselves. And let's actually look at some of these people who have this sophistication that we can learn from, and let's blend these worlds together and find that sweet spot. But I think that sweet spot is a constant pursuit. I don't think you ever arrive there.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that because we haven't arrived there. And I'm curious from your perspective, how frustrating were those times? Because your organization just chews through that and all the change.
We lost 2 years. We were trying to get off of this old antiquated CRM goldmine. And man, we had patched it, duct tape, baling wire. I mean, we had gotten more out of it than the goldmine people ever intended a customer to get. And because we were not going to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for software. Right. We were all cash. And so it was just like, if it kind of works, then we're going to do it. But it got to a point where we were like, this is terrible. We've got customer information all over the place. Different teams are trying to call the same customer, and they call them 5 times in the same day from 5 different parts of the company. The customer's confused. And we finally bit the bullet and said, we're going to implement Salesforce and have a grown-up CRM. And we brought in smart people that knew about Salesforce. And dude, the level of IQ was through the roof, but also the willingness to just take 2 to 3 years to get it all done the right way and not feel the pain of how much business was going to grind to a halt while we were doing that. And several of these people don't work here anymore because finally we were just like, we've had enough. This is crazy.
You chew through them. Yeah.
And it cost a lot. It cost morale. It cost time. It cost revenue. And we had to shake it up. And so we figured out a way to get it plugged in with a different leadership approach and still get the data that we needed and get clean. So we grew up as a company, but as leaders, we almost over-delegated that because we were enamored with how smart these people were.
Yeah.
And we said, well, they're the Salesforce people, so let's just let them run the project. And they about killed us all before we realized. It was a big lesson that we learned.
Yeah.
And we said, okay, we going forward are going to bring in smart people, but we're going to teach them about why we value speed and passion and this crusader mindset and how we're not going to get overly sophisticated to the point that it grinds everything to a halt. And that was a painful lesson, but it's become a part of our DNA.
There is so much gold in all that because there are companies our size. That's where we're at. We have chewed through people, and the morale has been, because everything you just said is straight fact, right? You try to implement a new CRM. For us, it's an ERP, right? Everybody gets frustrated. You bring people in from $1 billion place. They're used to using an ERP. Mm-hmm. Our people, we're like Excel, Google Sheets, like, well, let's just run it. Exactly. Keaton's going to do some envelope math, cowboy it.
Got sticky notes everywhere.
Growing up, I mean, I was funny. We use Slack as company communication. We love it. I was going to try to find a picture of LeBron as an adolescent with braces and knee guards on, because that's where we're at. There is greatness somewhere down the line. 5 years from now, there's no doubt in my mind. I just got to get the organization to have enough patience and enough vision, and that's really my job. I gotta get them to see the big picture, ride this storm out, because it is, when you're making all this organizational change for the better, it's a storm in the meantime, and it's a lot of change for an organization to chew through. But it's everything you just said. Couldn't strike a chord more.